This is a repeat guest, Dr. Jeffrey Gross. If you're an avid follower of the podcast, you may remember him from episode 302 from January of this year, where we talked about human exosomes. Well, today we're taking the conversation even further, and we're going into another world of exosomes. So I don't want to give too much away because the episode is fantastic. But before you go, I have a couple of things. Before you rush off to listen to the episode, I have a couple of other things to tell you. Number one, if you're interested in signing up for my newsletter and you would like a list of my top 5 peptides that I just love, you can go to natniddam.com/top5. And that's where you can sign up for the newsletter and get a free gift at the same time. So that's number one. Number two, I'd love to, for those of you who'd like to connect with me directly and hang out at all, you can join my community. And that is at natniddam.com. And you'll see at the top, there's the longevity community tab. We have a couple of different options there for you. I created a very inexpensive community for people who just wanted refuge from what is the crazy world of Facebook these days, who keep threatening to close down that community. And I do a single monthly Q&A in that membership community there. And that's a very inexpensive community. And then for those of you who are willing to invest a little bit more, we have our traditional longevity community. And that one, I do weekly live Q&As. And I also bring in guests from podcast episodes to do answer your live questions about those episodes and lots of other fun stuff. So thank you for being here. Remember that if you're feeling inspired by any episode that I record, please make sure to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to it on. If you want to watch the podcast, you can also head over to YouTube and make sure to follow me on Instagram at Nathalie Niddam, because that's where we post about not only the podcast, but also just things that are coming up in my world that I love to share with people, little snippets of information. So today we're talking about tiny packages with a massive impact, plant exosomes. Who would have thunk it, right? I am rejoined by Dr. Jeff Gross, who was our guest in episode 302. That link will be down in the show notes as well, if you're interested in that, who explains why these microscopic messengers might be the most effective and efficient delivery system we've got for getting nutrients straight into our cells. We get into why human and plant exosomes are not created equal, what sets this delivery method apart from your average supplement, and the double concentration magic that makes this formula so effective. So if you want to get your hands on some of this magic for yourself at some point, all you have to do is visit resellnutra.com and use code NAT for 10% off. And you're definitely going to want to try this stuff out. So it's resell, RECELL, Nutra, NUTRA.com, and use code NAT for 10% off. Now, there's also a link in the show notes that you can use as well. All right, here we go.
Hey folks, just a quick reminder that all of the information presented in this podcast is for information purposes only. No medical advice, no diagnosing, no treatments suggested here. Before you try anything that you hear about or learn about here, make sure that you check with your medical provider.
Dr. Jeffrey Gross, welcome back to the show. It is so great to have you back so soon.
I'm so happy to be back. It's always great to talk with you and your audience and move the needle forward in regeneratives.
I know. It's so exciting. And you know, it's funny. I say so soon, but it's not this soon, because the last episode we recorded aired in, I think it was January or February of this year.
Right.
It was a massive hit for good reason. So you guys, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, you must go find it. We'll put the link in the show notes. And because that was the one where we really dove deep into stem cells and exosomes and the whole regenerative space around that. And that was, I mean, for me, it was one of the first deep dives I did into that topic. And I've been kind of lost down there ever since. But our paths have crossed many, many times since then.
Yes.
And, a few months ago at a conference, you're like, I've got something really exciting coming down the pipes. And I'm like, really? What? Like, what could possibly be more exciting than exosomes? And you're like, well, I'm going to let you say it, because I think this is really interesting. And when you tell people what it is, I'd love to invite you to tell us why you would even go there.
Yeah.
Why go to a different type of exosome if you've already got something that's so fabulous?
Well, it was part of me being a nerd and part accident, I should say. And, I've become, sort of reinvigorated in molecular biology, cell biology, and I studied that as an undergraduate a long time ago. And, getting
That's
back.
why we love you. Experience.
Thank you. So, love you right back. But getting back into things and seeing what we've learned in the years since I studied it has just been like going back to college, and except without all the parties. So, I've looked back into what we're doing with stem cells and how exosomes or extracellular vesicles are really doing the work of the cellular signaling and messaging and reactivating cells and turning off inflammation and turning off bad and turning on good in the way we want it with the right biologics. Well, it turns out when you do the searches online and you look at the literature, you can't not disregard the fact that animals, the animal kingdom, and I don't mean that from like going on a safari perspective, but the kingdom from biology, there are plants and there are animals and,
viruses and
all that stuff.
Bacteria,
so,
all the things.
That the animal kingdom is not the only source of cells that makes exosomes. Others do, for example, plants. So when you start reading about it, it turns out one of the major ways we get our beneficial nutrients from plants, and there are so many, is from plant-derived exosomes. They deliver them to us that way. It's way one kingdom of biology communicates with another kingdom from cell to cell. And, the more I dove into that, the more I was, just in love with the concept of, well, wow, if that's how it's done, eating one piece of fruit can only get you so many exosomes. What if we could concentrate those buggers? And that's where this whole thing got its birth.
Right. So this whole thing being this whole space of plant exosomes. And we had a really interesting conversation before we started recording because I asked, exosomes, that kind of sounds a bit like a liposome. And your answer to that was really interesting. And that is that liposomes are a synthetic form of exosomes.
Right. So nature's figured this out already. Plants
a long time ago.
encapsulated the phytonutrients in a bilipid membrane, just like a cell membrane, but it's much smaller. That's why, it's called an extracellular vesicle or exosome. We use that word sort of generically, but it's a small outpocketing of material from a cell that's designed to be taken up by another cell by engulfing it and using the contents that are protected along the way by this membrane. So a liposome is a synthetic way of doing that. And we know that, vitamins and certain nutrients and supplements in a liposomal form have better cellular delivery where you want them. So, well, why go through all that trouble when nature's already done it for us?
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And you bring up a really interesting point in terms of that the contents of the exosome or the liposome. I mean, liposomes are tough to do well. I've interviewed a couple of people about this, and a lot of people talk about, there might be liposomes in your supplement, but doesn't mean the actives are actually in the liposome. They're really difficult to execute properly. Right. But you bring up a topic that I think is really interesting, which is this whole idea of bioavailability. We can take all the vitamins and minerals and anti-aging compounds, call them, that you want. The big question is always going to be, is the payload getting to the destination you want it to get to? Right.
So let's reverse engineer that for just a second. Let's say you want the best out of your phytonutrients. You want the best delivery so you can get the most out of them biochemically in your cells. And sometimes not just in your cells, but a lot of these work on the mitochondria. Right. And as we get to know our mitochondria better and better, they really are a cell within a cell. And a lot of the energy and oxidative stress can be balanced and modified at the mitochondrial level. So, the cells are basically just a safety wrapper with some activities maintaining the mitochondria when you really look at it. We always thought 100%. The nucleus was so important because the DNA is there. Well, mitochondria has its own DNA, right?
Yeah.
So you got to protect that too. Anyway, if you want to deliver the most nutrients cellular supplements and mitochondrial supplements, you have to get them into the cell and even into the mitochondria. And the only way to do that is to have something that really gets into the cell well, that gets through the membrane. And in this case, it has to be encapsulated in a membrane-like vesicle. So exosomes, liposomes, nanoparticles, all these are code words for the same kind of thing, but they have varying availability. So liposomes are synthetic. It's usually you put the nutrients in a fatty emulsion and you hope and pray, and it's somewhat effective that a lot of those nutrients are sort of getting encapsulated because there's self-assembly of those fatty membranes. Or you could go natural. You could go with a plant-derived exosome that already has the nutrients in it, and that exosome has a membrane that's not just this generic single or double fatty layer, but it actually has little receptors and things that protect that membrane. So we know we can get those into the cell at a very high concentration, with exosomes being better than liposomes, the natural ones being better than the synthetic ones. Then how do you get enough of those exosomes or liposomes to be concentrated? Well, you have to extract them. Exosomes are so small that when it takes quite a bit of fruit, for example, in our own experience, to get one capsule of exosomes of 10 billion exosomes in that capsule. So if you would have to eat bushels and bushels of fruit to get the exosomes to be delivered. So, and also there's digestion, right? If we had animal exosomes, if we eat meat, for example, for those meat eaters out there, we digest those. The animal membrane is not as sturdy and resilient as a plant membrane, but plant membranes can survive the gastrointestinal tract and deliver their contents, into our bloodstream to get to the cells. So the maximal delivery plants have already figured out.
That's so interesting. And so what about if someone would say, but the animal exosome could it be more compatible to our cells? Because let's say like mammal to mammal, like species to species, is it possible that there's an advantage versus a plant? Like, you've got the entire carnivore community that's out there telling people that plants are trying to kill them. So this would seem to them to be like, oh my God, this is like a Trojan horse. This is what we're talking about. These things are going to kill you. So with no disrespect, guys, look, I'm just saying there's different points of view here. But what is there some science around that conversation?
Yeah, there's overlap between animal and plant exosomes content wise. So, and remember, exosomes contain more than just a phytonutrient if they're from a plant. They also contain things animal exosomes have, like peptides and growth factors, heat shock proteins, which is the kind of thing you release to stimulate autophagy and renewal when you go into a hot sauna repeatedly. So we see that preserved in plants and animals. MicroRNAs. Now, these aren't RNAs that are going to change your genome or your genetics, but they do affect the epigenetics of what's going on and what proteins are being produced inside the cell, because you want to produce more anti-inflammatory proteins than, degrading proteins. So animal and plants overlap in that. Where they differ is that human animals can't make the phytonutrients. And we do need those phytonutrients. Are there plants that make biochemicals that are phytonutrient-like that we probably shouldn't have? Yes. I mean, you talk about nightshades in certain plants. We don't want those necessarily. There might be other species that do. But that could be a defense mechanism for that plant. So there is overlap, but there's also the distinction. So we want to focus on the beneficial ones towards health and wellness.
Right. So, okay. So we keep mentioning phytonutrients. So let's hone in. I mean, you sent me a document that listed no fewer, I think there were 20 different categories of phytonutrients. So we're not going to go through all of those, guys, because A, this will be a marathon, and B, we'll need a mechanism to keep you awake. Even though it's fascinating information, there's a lot of it. Right. So let's cherry pick, and I think you did this for us already. Like, let's cherry pick the heavy hitters here that are being researched for what they do. And there's one in there that I think is really interesting before we jump into the group, and that's resveratrol. Like, resveratrol is one of these compounds that's been up and down and up, and like, it's like a yo-yo. One day it's what's going to save us. The next day, not bioavailable. It doesn't work. The research is flawed. It can't be repeated. So, or then you need trans resveratrol, but that's not right either. So can we talk a little bit about resveratrol?
Yeah, sure.
And it's everybody's excuse to drink red wine. So,
You mean I shouldn't be doing that? I mean,
no.
Well, no, you're right. And if you get a bag of supplement powder of resveratrol, and you mix it into water, what have you, or however you like to take it in a capsule form, you're really not getting that much to the cell. So you're really not increasing your Sirtuin 1 gene, one of the anti-aging gene activities in the mitochondria that you want. It's just hard to get enough. And then you have to eat so much of it, you're just not going to feel good and might have other issues. So let's turn back to nature. We've evolved around nature, right? Mm-hmm. And we know what's good. We know what to eat. Red grapes are some of them. Other fruits have resveratrol. Resveratrol is one of the phytonutrient molecules that is pro-health, pro-longevity, and it's delivered through plant-derived exosomes. It's in the exosomes. That's how you get it. So eating fruit gives you probably more resveratrol than a supplement of resveratrol. I didn't always know that, but in my research, I've figured that out. So that's one of them, and we do benefit from it at the cellular level. So it's one of the phytonutrients, and that's one of the things we've sought to include when we were developing a supplement that made sense.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's definitely one of the big hitters that it remains a conundrum, right? And so and it's funny, like, as you're talking about it, it makes so much sense. The challenge is you'd become a diabetic from eating as many grapes as you need to.
Correct.
To get the resveratrol in what we would call, let's call it a therapeutic dose, or enough of it so that you can actually move the needle. So another compound that's in there, that is another one that gets a ton of attention, a lot of conversation around it. Is it part of the TRIM study, the quercetin? Or I'm getting my studies mixed up.
I don't have that study handy, but it is one of the polyphenol phytonutrients, the flavonoid family. So, and it is, it also acts in the mitochondria, right? So you start to look at these things, you start to see the pattern.
Yeah. So quercetin, I mean, it's a very powerful compound that is used, and it gets used in many different ways, actually, because when I first learned about quercetin, I think it was more to manage histamine responses.
Yep.
Right? And now it's being touted as a very powerful anti-aging compound.
Well, let's point out that pattern there. Histamine is an allergic or an immune or an inflammatory response. So anything that helps suppress too much inflammation helps slow the aging process. That's where that whole word inflammaging comes from, right? So you pointed it out there. I don't know if you set me up for that or not, but it was perfect. I hit it out of the park, right?
It's my job. Lob the balls. Lob the balls.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. And it was looked at for its antihistaminic properties, but in essence, it's found out that it suppresses inflammation. And if you do that enough for long enough, you will likely have an anti-aging benefit.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's go. The next one that I think is a real standout that people talk about a lot is glutathione. And glutathione it's a tripeptide. Yep. Is it?
Correct.
Yep. So it's a tripeptide. And again, glutathione is another one of these compounds. It's always about, can you get it into the cell? Yes, you can take it. Yes, you can. And people, they'll inject it. They'll sniff it, like they'll do all kinds of stuff with it.
Right.
But the real question is it actually getting into the cell? And so is that exosome actually the Trojan horse we need to pull the glutathione without it having, because otherwise the body basically has to disassemble it and then reassemble it.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And not only the body, most nutrient companies that make supplements are disassembling it from its original plant-derived exosome source and then maybe reassembling it in some other delivery mechanism, liposome or transdermal or what have you. There's so many. Glutathione's a tough one. And you can't just measure the blood test because it doesn't tell you how much is getting into the cell. If it's all circulating around in your blood, you have a nice, good blood level, that doesn't mean your cells are getting it where it's needed. It's an intracell. You need it in the cell. Our cells are doing the work. So it's like all the Amazon trucks are driving around the freeway, but they never get the package to your house, right? So
that happens all the time.
I know that's. I wanted to have a very salient and hit home with that analogy, and I think so.
It's a good analogy. I think everybody's experienced that these days.
Yeah.
The trucks just never get to your house. They're around. You're getting the notices, but they're just never landing. So what are the? There's okay. So glutathione. These are these antioxidants that are just so. And you mentioned earlier, it's the oxidative stress of the mitochondria working so hard. So they're creating these reactive oxygen species that some is good, right? And too much is what really takes us down. And as we age, our ability to mop up those reactive oxygen species starts to decline. That's
100% correct, which makes me want to mention, and it's not on our top 10 list here, but some other contents of plant-derived exosomes include a couple enzymes. And those enzymes are superoxide dismutase and catalase, which are both incredible intracellular antioxidants. But it's so hard to get them into your body because if I gave you some enzyme, enzymes are proteins, and you eat them, you digest them. Some of them maybe make it through, maybe a little bit gets into the cell, but by the time they get to the mitochondria, they're not doing it. Now, we do make our own catalase and superoxide dismutase, but wouldn't you love to have each of your cells injected by an exosome that can deliver that from a plant that's made it naturally? I mean, let's not forget, this is nature's figured this out. Why are we working so hard to take plants, extract, by the way, with solvents, a lot of the nutrients, and then maybe put them back into a liposome and then eat them just for commercialization? Plants have figured this out. What we've done differently here is worked with a lab that has a process to extract the exosomes, which is quite a bit of work, and put them into a simple capsule.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. So you mentioned earlier that to get a significant amount of exosomes from a food, you'd have to eat tons of that food.
Yeah.
Is this manufacturer going through tons of fruits?
Yeah. So
are they actually physically having to empty orchards to produce this?
Yeah. Well, I haven't talked to them about, their, if we're going to run out of organic curated Italian fruits quite yet. But what I know is that for each capsule, each daily capsule of the fruit product, the fruit exosome product, you go through about a liter of juice with the fiber removed. So if you take the fiber, the pulp out, it's a liter of juice. So you'd have to eat, bushels and bushels of fruit to get one capsule. And of course, it's hard to do that, eat that much. And like you said earlier, that's a lot of fructose. That's a lot of sugar. Now, no, do we still benefit from the fiber and some of the other elements that's not in the exosome? Sure, you should still have irregular servings of fruit. But this is a way to supercharge it. A lot of people will have a fruit capsule and a veggie capsule, a red and a green, or they'll have the powders. I mean, you'd have to go through a tub of powder to get what's the exosomes in one capsule of what we have.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's insane. So, okay. So you had said that is there actual melatonin in the capsule? I just saw melatonin here on this list.
Now, this is not at a high enough concentration to put you to sleep. But some plants, we selected these fruits for their anti-aging qualities as a sort of, bring to market this whole brand and the concept of improved phytonutrient delivery, improved health. However, we're exploring other opportunities with plants that focus on other certain things. Some have, anti-cancer properties. Some have, help you sleep, maybe a sleeping blend with that has melatonin delivery better, things like that.
Well, what's interesting is I've actually been doing a bit of a deep dive recently on melatonin, and because somebody sent me a plant-derived melatonin. And if you look at the research, which you may have already done, but I hadn't really looked at it previously, we're talking hundreds of times more effective than synthetic melatonin when we take plant-based melatonin. It's actually blew me away, like 496, like in some effects, it was like in the 400 times more effective.
Love that.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, is it possible that melatonin that's being derived from the plants is somehow still encapsulated in its original exosome that makes it more bioavailable? So I've been testing it with a few people. I mean, I'm so looking forward to trying your product because just that melatonin, I've sent it out to a bunch of people. I'm using it. And a lot of people find it, number one, easier to tolerate, and they don't need as much to get the job done. So
that's great.
I just think, I wonder, it's so interesting, right? Like the way regenerative therapies are moving, and everybody's right now on the whole exosome and stem cell,
right,
placental derived, getting it from a human source. But what's starting to happen alongside it is people like you going, well, wait a minute, can we go back to the plant kingdom and see, is there something there that we've somehow missed along the way that could be very powerful? I mean, it's not the same as an exosome, because I think the human placental exosome is going to have growth factor, like it's going to have a higher concentration of compounds that are going to move the needle in a pure regenerative way.
Right.
But this could be the most effective way to get your micronutrients in that just don't seem to be getting into the cell too often.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're doing it and combining for some people, because of course we still do regenerative stem cell derived exosomes for people with joint problems or inflamed problems or what have you, or even the anti-aging biohacking enthusiasts like me. But we can't eat the human ones because we will digest them. The human exosome membrane is not as stable. So luckily we can eat and get the bioavailability from the plant-derived ones. You don't have to have an injection or an IV like we do with the animal-derived ones or the human-derived ones.
So let's talk a bit about the research that has been done on these plant exosomes, because again, I'm listening to people asking their questions while we're talking here, and not that they're there, they're the imaginary people that live with me in my head. So don't be afraid, people, I'm not dangerous. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, you just said that the human derived exosome is less stable, therefore it's easier for the cell to take it in and to make use of it, and you're saying the plant exosome is stronger membrane, so it's going to survive digestion. How do we know it's getting into the cells? So what is the research showing? I mean, there's not much in the way of human yet, but on animal research, what are you seeing in terms of that mechanism?
Well, I will take that back a little. There is some human research, just not on our fruit product yet. I say cool. Yet because
we can talk about it.
We're digging into that now. But the preclinical research was done in mice, and what they did was they infused peroxide into the bloodstream of the mice to give them inflammation and oxidative stress. The cells, mitochondria and cells don't like that. And then they rescued them by giving them this product, the exact product. And what they found through the rescue is they could bring their cell function and markers of inflammation back to normal in these very stressed out cells. So if you are not eating right, you work all night, you do too much, and you're not the healthiest of sorts, this product could be a way to help forgive you a little bit.
Even stressed, right? From day-to-day life. I mean, you don't even have to not be eating properly these days, just dealing with the world.
100%. And if you're already a health enthusiast, you want to get better phytonutrient delivery to maximize your health span. This is, you get the same benefits, right? But they showed in this particular study, and I'm just highlighting the two big ones that people know about, is they showed increased Sirtuin 1 gene activity, anti-aging gene activity. So if you want to, draw a straight line on a graph going up to the right, you would do Sirtuin gene activity on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you put age in years survival. So basically, the more of this activity of this gene, the longer you live. Correlation. The other thing they found was reduced reactive oxygen species. So when you give the peroxide, your reactive oxygen species goes up because you have these free radicals causing damage. Well, this phytonutrient exosome, plant-derived exosome blend was able to correct that. So that was remarkable in my mind. This is not trivial, and I think it has to do with the concentration you're getting into the cell, because we already know that the capsule is about 70 times concentrated compared to the fruit. Wow. And we know that exosomes deliver at anywhere from 10 to 500x concentration into the cell. So you combine those, you're looking at least on the low end 700x concentration of phytonutrients, and on the high end, what's that, 3,500?
A lot.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? 3,500x. So, I mean, this is not the future. It is the new normal, and we're going to, expand on this and really, I think really move the needle in the right direction.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because right now this is a blend of many different things. And right. As you mentioned this a few minutes ago, before I went off on my little melatonin rant. But you mentioned this, right? Like, what if we focus on only certain fruits or certain plants, right, and really targeted the effects at a certain thing? So let me ask you this. Antioxidants is a big topic. People, you've got people out there going, okay, and I need more antioxidants. And then you've got another camp which says, well, actually not so fast. Oxidative stress, to some measure, is actually a necessary signaling process in the body. We need some oxidative stress to keep the machine. It's kind of like, as humans, we need a little bit of stress. Otherwise, without stress, we'd get nothing done. We just lollygag around. We'd potentially die. Nothing would happen without some degree of stress. So it's, how do we find that healthy level of stress or reframe our stress? But the same with antioxidants. Do you want to is there any literature, research? Is there a conversation around how do we know this isn't going to dampen oxidative stress to the point where it becomes a negative?
That's a good question. I haven't done the deep dive on that particularly, but you're right. This is the paradigm of what we call hormesis, right? You do a little bit of stress, like a hot sauna or a cold plunge or high intensity exercise or fasting, to build cellular resilience. But we see that not only at the organism level, we see it at the cellular level, like you said. And we see it also with mTOR signaling, right? You want a certain amount of that, but don't go too far. Don't take too much rapamycin. So I think you're right. We will see the same thing we want to make sure that oxidative stress function exists and can respond. It's like heart rate variability. You want to know your heart can respond rapidly and properly as needed, going up or going down, which is what HRV really is. So that's something worth looking into. We don't want to make our cells so cushion easy that they never work.
Right.
Right. So, but I think having to move, having to think, having to deal with life as organisms, I think we're always going to be giving ourselves stress. And that takes me back to your deep dive on melatonin, because as we secrete cortisol in the morning and stress ourselves and ourselves, or feel that stress, we have to turn that off at night to repair. And that's why I'm a big fan of that sort of circadian, bless and respect your circadian, rhythm, your circadian biology, and help it when you can.
Yeah, no, 100%. So and I think that, so in the animal studies, though, they didn't show an excessive effect. It didn't show a negative effect. Like in the animal studies of the supplement, they weren't saying, oh my God, like this is so powerful, it's sucking everything up. At some level, there was, and I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that it's these are all natural compounds being delivered in a system that the body recognizes. And
this remains to be known, how much is too much of a good thing, but, I don't think we're trying to overstuffed with phytonutrients. We want to optimize, like in anything we do, like in hormone optimization, like in exercise. You can exercise too much. So I think we're on the conservative end. Yeah. What's that?
I said a lot of people do. I mean, you've got two camps, right? The people who exercise too much and people who don't. So finding that sweet spot is I think, and part of it I think is because exercise can be so addictive. Once people finally discover it, it's like fasting. It's so many different things. I think humans almost are programmed to believe if some is good, then more must be better.
Well, I don't know where that comes from, but it's probably a simple,
evolutionary
brain, brain circuit that says that, oh, wow, that piece of cake was good. I should have more.
Feels good for now until it doesn't. So in the mice, did they also do in vitro studies? Like, did they do just cell studies to show how the cells are engulfing the plant exosome?
Not with this particular blend, but I did a deep dive and wrote an article for Lifespanning magazine on this. And when you start looking at the references on plant-derived exosomes, which for your own searches, everyone at home, are sometimes called plant-derived extracellular vesicles, or PDEVs. So look for that as well. But I like to keep it simple. PDEs for us.
Yeah.
Those they're amazing. There are anti-cancer papers. There are things that you can get from for hair growth, and I'm entering into something that's already been there and has been discovered. I don't get credit for discovering this. I had some aha moments and then putting it together to make it available to people, but there are some wonderful scientists that have come ahead of me, and they've shown how these are taken in by the cells. Like you said, they've shown the cellular benefits on many occasions, and the health benefits, particularly with longevity and suppressing inflammation and modulating the oxidative stress, have wonderful results across the board.
That's amazing. This is exciting.
Yeah, it is.
This is like a whole new world.
It's not just another supplement. This is a whole new way of going back to nature to get them, which is kind of how my regenerative practice works, right? We're tapping back into our own body's ability to heal, and just helping it along by supercharging it where it's needed in an older or degraded individual.
Yeah. Are you seeing kind of synergies between the two things that you do? Because I've sometimes heard, I mean, when you're treating a knee that's very inflamed and injured and damaged, I mean, at times I've heard people say, yeah, but if you don't get that inflammation under some kind of control, the material you introduce into it can just end up getting consumed by the inflammation somehow. Is there a world where you see therapeutically testing out, having someone on this type of product before they come into you for that regenerative injection?
We haven't studied that yet, but it makes sense because if you talk to anyone with a inflamed joint problem, they'll tell you, when I eat real clean and I intermittent fast and I exercise other parts of me, I feel my knee feels better. When I'm less inflamed, it feels better. So this product would fall in line with that. Eating right would be the right amount of healthy fruits and vegetables. If we can supercharge it, I would like to do that. We are, with some of my joint work, we are working towards suppressing inflammation, like you said, before we go to the regenerative step. And there are other ways to do that, but we want the person optimized to get the best results. So that could be, some people need coaching on their diet, sleep, exercise, everything. Some people need the right supplements. Some people need a dietary change. But yes, I mean, this type of plant-derived exosome fruit blend that we have is not just anti-aging, it's anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. So, I mean, who is it? It's, I'm sure you know her, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth. She often talks about osteoarthritis is not an overuse problem. It's an inflammatory problem.
She's right. This is an inflammatory disease at the edges of the bone. The bone cells can no longer produce the cartilage and maintain the cartilage. The cartilage is the symptom. It's the bystander.
Yeah.
It is not the primary cause.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a very it's a very interesting concept and not something that people really understand. But to your point, how many people do we come across who change their diet? It doesn't fix their knee, but it makes them feel better.
Right.
And yeah.
But it's a good start, because people shouldn't want to have a knee replacement, and this you do everything you can, but we have new tools for that all the time. We have amazing stories. We've talked about that previously, but
well, you can mention those stories now, because I think it's one of those. I think this is something that bears repeating for the people who don't go back and listen to the first episode. I think that your success in regenerating cartilage is nothing short of jaw dropping. I mean, I spent half a show dragging people to your booth to meet you.
Thank you.
Who had bad knees and shoulders and whatnot. but I'd love you to blow your own horn right now. Like, talk a little bit about the success you've had with cartilage regeneration, because
yes,
people need to know this.
Just thank you so much for that. And just in short, your body made your knee and your joints, your cartilage in the first place. It turns off, and it just maintains it during your adulthood. But we can tap back into that factory and make some more. And what happens is those cells at the bone edge that used to be part of the growth plate that make the cartilage, and for those who want to do the deep dive, they're called chondrocytes, sites being cell, chondro being cartilage. They're right at the bone edge, and they need to be re-stimulated. And we do that using, donated perinatal exosomes by injection. And over a 6 to 12 month process, we have incredible stories and before and after MRIs where we've shown the cartilage, improve itself. And with that, of course, forget how it looks. People feel better; they can function, and we've kept
More
them.
Importantly,
we've put off knee replacement surgery, because on the menu at the orthopedic surgeon's office, most of them is, we could do a scope, we can clean it up, we can do some lubrication injections for you, cortisone injections, which we want to use very sparingly.
Yeah.
And then surgery. They don't have that additional step that we've added, which is that regenerative step. Some do, they'll do PRP, but they do it in the cartilage, and it doesn't have as good a result, because the cartilage is not where the problem is. You have to inject the bone edge. I know that sounds painful, but we do it under sedation. Doesn't take long at all. And we do it based on a high quality MRI. We do the targeting. This is highly specific.
Yeah, no. And I mean, yeah, it does sound painful to have a needle stuck into your, I guess it's into the bone or close to the bone or whatever it is.
In the bone. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's shoulders is up around their ears right now, but I'll tell you that I've seen some of the imaging, the before and after, and it is jaw dropping. And it's not like having surgery is any less painful. And if your outcome, I guess you don't have yet the 10-year, 20-year case studies yet.
The French do. The French have published this. I did not invent this. I wish I were that cool, but I basically said, who's doing this?
You're cool enough to find it and do it. So
who's doing this the best? And the French published the 15-year follow-up a few years back. I hope they published their 20-year. And they showed that the bone injections were superior in over 80% of the patients who needed a knee replacement at the beginning of the study. At the 15-year mark, didn't. So only 20-some patient, 20%, less than 20% of patients were having issues again. Now, this is designed to be a one and done, but at the 20-year mark, if you're in that small group, you could have another one. So
why not?
Yeah.
And if you're using plant exosomes at the same time, who knows? Right. And I would guess, because this is you're sourcing your plant exosomes from Italy, right?
Yep.
Am I wrong in thinking that maybe the European market is a little more advanced on the plant exosome front than the North American market?
I think so. I think the entire Europe and Asia are ahead of us in regenerative medicine. And the exosomes are certainly, in that realm. Yeah. But they're also ahead of us in something else. Italy is part of what we call Blue Zone, right? They have anti-aging secrets for many generations. And that's why we source these particular organic Italian fruits known for their anti-aging properties, particularly the Resveratrol, the Quercetin. And we didn't get a chance to mention, but it's interesting that these plant-derived exosomes are rich in B vitamins. Except B12.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And vitamin C. So yes, and it's very interesting because you were able to meet my wife at the last event, and she, I give her baggies full of supplements every day. I say, here's your day's amount. She's like, I've got pill fatigue. I want, what can you take out of here? Yeah. So now we're able to take out the quercetin, the Fisetin, the Resveratrol, the B complex, except B12, and glutathione and things like that. And we still take a little extra vitamin C, but I've got that little baggie of supplements down by at least 5 or 6 things. So we're moving in the right direction.
That's amazing. Now for the B vitamins, so these would be the most bioavailable form of B vitamins, right?
Correct.
Because this is the thing, right? Like now we're getting out of this whole, is it methylated? Is it not methylated? Right. This is food sourced. So right away.
Yeah, they are ready to go. So you don't have to worry about that methylation process as much. And remember, B vitamins work at the mitochondria. We're back to the mitochondria. Like, forget the cells already. Let's just, if we could find a way to go right to the mitochondria, we really jumped the shark here. So
yeah, no kidding. So do you think people don't need to take a B complex except for B12? We're excluding B12. So just so you guys know, there's no B12. But you should get your B12 tested before you take it anyway. I've seen B12 toxicity occasionally, and it's
agreed. And B12, is really best delivered by injection anyway. So you can get that monthly or every other month in your behind, just a little shot. But and again, if you start looking at blood levels, that doesn't necessarily tell you what you're getting in your cells. So I think we're trying to formulate a human study where we're going to look at the metabolites.
Yes.
So it won't matter what your B vitamin level is, as long as you have the healthy metabolite patterns and profiles.
Yeah. So that's a test. I recorded a podcast with them last year, and we're doing another one this year. The company's called Theriome, and Dr. Jeff has now alluded to this little piece of information that is so critical and missed by so many people. And that is that, when you get a blood test done, it'll tell you how much magnesium is in your blood. It might give you some insight into how much B12 is in your blood, or iron, or whatever the case may be. But it doesn't. Well, iron might have it has ferritin, so that's a storage form. But for most micronutrients, we want to know what's in the cell. Now, there is another blood test that can give you insight into that, called SpectraCell, that'll measure micronutrients in cells. But Theriome has taken it a step further, saying, yeah, well, just because it's in the cell, it's a good first step, but it doesn't mean that your cells are using it to its full advantage. Right. And so they're looking at what is your body doing with these micronutrients in the cells. So they're looking at the metabolome of the cells, and really interesting stuff. Like the first consult I did with them, they knocked out 5 or 6 different supplements I was taking, saying, dude, you're not using those properly. You need something else. So
right.
Interesting information.
But wait, there's a bonus. And this came up.
There's more.
There's more. Through my discussions with the folks at Theriome and in the whole field of metabolomics is these plant-derived exosomes that we're talking about today aren't just for us. They are for our gut microbiome. They deliver directly to the microbiome, and a lot of the activities in the gut bacteria help us process and spit out different phytonutrients or processed phytonutrients that we can't do ourselves. We don't have the enzymes for. So we need to take care of our gut microbiome. This is one way you can help do that.
So the plant exosomes actually have an affinity also for the microbiome, right? And Theriome has that gut test that's measuring the gut.
Well, yeah, their metabolomics in general will look at the end products in our blood. So they will tell us what cells are spitting out and what the microbiome might be producing or not producing, so that we can look at the whole pattern. Wow. And this is not trivial. This is a very long list of biochemicals that are really the down and dirty measurements of what's going on in your cells.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, okay. So are there any compounds we didn't mention? You mentioned in passing Fisetin a minute ago, and Fisetin's become the new darling. it's one of the big darlings in the world because with quercetin, because of triggering autophagy, which you had mentioned earlier.
Right.
Which is an interesting concept, right? Because there's everybody, again, this is another hot point of contention is, should we be taking a lot one day and nothing for a bunch of days, or do we need a little bit all the time? And I would think that, the position on this is going to be, if these compounds are available in foods, there's an argument for getting some at some dose on an ongoing basis, just to allow for daily cleanup.
Right. And that's where we start with almost any supplement is because there's no known harm to a conservative dose, and there are only benefits, to achieve. And, we see this in the supplement world too, because you take a number of supplements like I do, like you do, like others do, and you don't necessarily feel all that different. And you'd love to have a measured endpoint. You'd love to, if I miss my melatonin, I don't sleep well. But if I didn't have my spermidine today, I'm not going to necessarily feel that on one day. So we have noticed in the early adopters of our product, they have, and it could be, not fully studied, but some energy benefits.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Energy's good. Well, it would kind of make sense in the sense that, that if things are actually getting where they need to go, you might feel a difference differently than if you're just ingesting the synthetics. So, okay.
100%.
I'm looking, for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm looking at the document that sent me, and there's so much stuff here. I don't want to, I think we've hit a lot of the heavy points. Maybe what we'll do is link to the article that you wrote for lifespanning in the show notes so that people can go read it for themselves there.
Great.
So we're going to link to the lifespanning article. We're going to link to the study that was published on this. And then we're going to link to how people can do their own N of 1 experiment and get their hands on this new amazing product, which I'm personally really excited to try. It's called Longevex. Longevex. Sorry. And look at the beautiful bottle, which you only get one of, by the way, you guys. Your subsequent orders come in refill packs, which I think is, am I right about that?
You're absolutely right. So we went with the glass bottle because of we wanted to avoid microplastics, right? We're trying to stay away from that. And we've got too much plastic in our world. So glass bottle and then a Mylar bag refill. And we decided to do an every other month to save on shipping. So try to do a little something nice for the world. So please check the link and give it a try. We'd love your feedback.
Yeah, I think that, and if any of you guys, like I'm doing a theriome test pretty soon, so it's going to be an interesting benchmark for me as I start to take the supplement, and then maybe repeat it in 6 months to a year and see what happens. But this has been really, really fun, Jeff. Yeah. I didn't realize that, when we recorded that first podcast on regenerative medicine, that we would be sitting here talking about a plant-based exosome product down the road.
Well, we were in development and we had to go through I've learned a lot about the supplement industry and how to register with the FDA and all that stuff. And of course, we're not allowed to, make any claims that it cures a disease. That's all right on the bottle. We want to be compliant. But we're always looking for new things that help people, particularly if they fall into the theme of what we do here at Recelebrate, which is regenerative medicine, stem cell based exosomes, things like that.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, so every one capsule, which is the daily dose, by the way, one capsule, just one. This is your one a day. This is actually your one a day.
This really is a one a day.
This is the one a day we've all been waiting for, is 10 billion plant exosomes. That's a lot of exosomes.
In the exosome world, it's a good daily dose. When sometimes we do IVs in the trillions, right? But and this is very specific. These are, grapefruit, papaya, mango, bergamot, which is kind of a lime thing, and then blood orange, blonde orange. Did I say grapefruit?
Yeah.
Okay. and I don't think I meant to leave anything out, but it's basically a Mediterranean anti-aging, mostly citrus blend, very high in resveratrol, and I think that's why we're moving the Sirtuin 1 gene activity up so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, those are the big movers and shakers. Bergamot is a big one. I can't remember her name, but a few years ago, there was a woman wrote a book, and she would use this Earl Grey tea that was enriched in bergamot, because bergamot has these very, very powerful anti-aging properties.
There, see, it all comes
and
full
she
circle.
was sourcing it from Italy also, so Italy seems to be the way to go.
Well, maybe one reason we chose this lab is that they already had this perfected. Plus, I get to go visit the lab.
Amazing. Where is it in Italy?
It's in Italy, outside of Rome. It's in Abruzzo.
Yeah. Beautiful. You got to go in the fall during fungi season.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
All right. Well, Dr. Jeff, this has been super enlightening. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to give Longevex a try, I think just from the Sirtuin activation, the anti-inflammatory or controlling inflammation, managing reactive oxygen species, and bioavailability to the cells, this sounds to me like something that really stands apart from most of what we're seeing out there. So thank you for this and for bringing it to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And so let's just tell people where they can find you, first of all, where they can find you. If anybody out there is with a knee that needs attention, maybe, or a shoulder or a wrist or an ankle, whatever, where they find you, and then we'll give them the website for Longevex.
Thank you. Our clinical practice is called Recelebrate, because you're celebrating the renewal of your cells. And that can be found on social media, internet, all with this one word. And I think we're the only people using the word, so you can just type it in. It's RECELLEBRATE, Recelebrate. That's where you find us.
Beautiful. And then for Longevex, it's just longevex.com, or is there something?
It's actually Recell Nutra. Someone actually took the domain. We couldn't get it, but it's RECELLNUTRA.com. And we'll have a specific link, Nathalie, for your audience.
For the listeners.
Yeah.
And you can, guys, the link is going to be in the show notes, but even without the special link, you can use discount code NAT when you check out, and you'll save some money on your first order. I'm actually on all your orders. So check it out. Thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure.
Always mine. Thank you so much. Bye.